Hey everybody, hope you are all doing well today. Please let me know if you can hear me and see me okay. Everything's looking good on my side though, so I hope you're off to a great day. I had actually a special guest scheduled to come on today, but at the last minute a customer called and he had to go out and do a sales call or a service call. And yeah, so these things happen. I mean, like I was telling them, customers come first and lunchtime tech talks come second. That's always the case. But in any case, we hope to get him back on. I didn't put all his information in the show because I know, these kind of folks, you guys out there are very busy and you can't make every show. So I also want to say hi to Rob in the chat. We have the chat coming in from both YouTube and LinkedIn. But when I reply, like, hey, Rob, it only went to YouTube. So in any case, uh, okay, and Rob confirms. Thank you, Rob. You're like my producer today. In any case, let's go ahead and get into today's show. The first thing I want to do, though, is let me click here. And I am offering this is a special for, well, we're almost in fall now, right? So I'm offering a special. I'm going to offer any viewer of the show, and you can give this to somebody you know, because I know a lot of you are already experts. A lot of people who watch this show are already automation experts, so you would not need this. But you can gift this to one person. It is a 20% discount on any of my courses that are $99 or more, and that goes for the bundles as well. And I do this. I always do this for returning customers. So let's say a student takes my PLC course that he wants to take an HMI course. I always offer a 20% discount to on their next course. And of course, they can always upgrade to the bundle for the difference in price. But I thought, I'm going to do something. This show is only a couple weeks old, so I wanted to do something special for you guys who found the show here early. This not only goes for those who are watching live, but also for those who are watching after the fact. All you have to do, and you can see here, theautomationschool.com. I got the email you can use. I got the voicemail. You can actually submit a form to send me an email if that's easier. And you can even book a time. Now, this also applies to group enrollments. So a lot of people don't know this, but I work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies and we enroll, 5, 10, 20 people at a time. There's an additional discount off of the sale prices when they do that. And so we'll also have that 20% off just to get started for anybody who has a group. Now, a group is 3 or more. Some people like to say a group is 2. 2 is a peer. So we did clearly have a group of 3 or more students. But in any case, we work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and actually for going on a decade now. So in any case, you'll see somewhere here I have all the logos of all the different companies. Actually, I think it's on the course pages. That said, I wanted to show you guys something else too. And theautomationblog.com, you guys know I moved this to a new server. We're having a little, moving pains. Some things are working great. Some things are still working on. Every once in a while, I have to talk to them about some speed issues. But in any case, because this is your free resource for over 2,000 articles and videos. And I wanted to show you, though, what this show will look like when it's done. So here's the show from yesterday. So we have the video you can watch here, right? Then you have the audio, right? And this is the Automation Tech Talk audio. So I rebranded the Automation News headlines. And then I've been, it takes an hour or two to get the transcripts, but these are actually pretty good transcripts, much better than what you get from YouTube because you have all the timestamps in them and everything. And so this is more conversational. So I've been trying to do this for the Automation Podcast and this show. And so far it's going well. Of course, this does cost extra, but in any case, if we could get you guys to, if you ever missed a live show and you want to catch the replay, you can do it on YouTube. You can do it on LinkedIn, but you also get that full, nice, easy to read transcript. And I know some people would rather read, especially first thing in the morning, than watch. So in any case, so with that, let's get over to what we're going to talk about today. This is the backup plan I had here. Let's go to present mode. And so what I'm showing you, we're going to talk about the 5th generation of CompactLogix. And what I'm showing here are free PowerPoint slides from Rockwell. I spent a whole weekend going because I had this rush order come in. A vendor wanted me to go teach their customer how to program their PLCs, right? And I was like ecstatic to do that. But I had to spend the whole weekend taking all kinds of slides and putting them together. I wanted to give the customer something that they could keep, something that wasn't something that was free to the public, right? So in this case, Rockwell gives these slides away for free. and they're all copyrighted by Rockwell. But in any case, you can call your Rockwell distributor and ask for a copy of these. Again, if they have any good people left, they'll have this archived like I did. I have, I don't know, 25 years archived before I started my own business. But in any case, I was just sending somebody. So we do the Automation Museum podcast over the weekends. Haven't released any episodes yet, but I've been sending the guests when they come on. They're like, "Oh, I wish I had something on this old product or that old." I've even helped companies to like, "Oh, I can't find this old manual." I'm like, "Yeah, I got it." So in any case, I did post this for those of you in my Compact Basics course, CompactLogix course over at the Automation School. I did put this up there in Appendix A, so you can grab a copy of this. But if you're not in my courses, just ask your Rockwell rep. If they're worth their salt, they'll have all these presentations free from Rockwell. But I thought we had used this. I thought it would be good because you can see behind me. Let me go back full screen here. You can see behind me all my high end. Actually, every one of my CompactLogix, except for the 1, 2, and 3 generations I showed you earlier in the series, they're all wired in the trainers here at the Automation School. And again, we're good to do 4, 5, 6, 7 people. If you want to send them in, we can actually do up to 8 people if you want to send them in to learn Logix or S7. We can also do the HMIs. But you want to definitely in the falls. The Berkshires is a great place to visit, and we have within 3 miles all the major hotels. Just go to automationschool.com/live. You'll see all that. Plus, we get the Norman Rockwell Museum. We have Jiminy Peak. We have Mount Greylock. But in any case, let's get back to what we're talking about here. And let's see, wrong one. I want to be up there. Okay, great. Where the Berkshires is about an hour east of Albany, New York. It's officially in Massachusetts, and I'm in the center of the Berkshires in downtown Pittsfield. So actually, this building used to be an old paper mill. So in any case, and it houses a newspaper now, but I don't know if they print here or not. In any case, thank you for asking where I was located. And theautomationschool.com/live. I got links to all the attractions, links to all the nearby hotels, Hampton Inn, Holiday Inn, all the big ones you can think of. We have within 3 miles of the site. And one of the things I do that big corporation can't is, if you wanted to learn Siemens and Rockwell the same day, I can do that, right? The other thing is, if you wanted to start at like 12 noon because you want to drive in, like I've had people drive in from Pennsylvania, if you want to drive in from someplace that's 4 or 5 hours away, we can start at 12, 1 o'clock and then finish the next morning, right? Or do 2 or 3 days in a row. We also not only have the physical trainings, we also have Factory IO. I'm a Factory IO reseller. So if you blow through all those, we got even more. And trust me, you won't finish all the Factory IO in a day, that's for sure. So in any case, back to generation number 5 of CompactLogix, and this is the 5380. Now, again, I think it was Dean yesterday who said that the 5370s, the L2s and L3s, were just recently marked as active mature. And at the time, I was like, why would they do that? But then I remembered the Micro 1400 has been active mature for a long time. So maybe they'll still be around for a long time. There's really no low capacity 5380, right? And that's the point I'm trying to get to here. Is they're expensive and they're high capacity, right? So if you use a comparison, there's no S7 1200 version of the CompactLogix 5380, right? So in any case, if you know anything about Siemens, the 1200 and 1500 program with the same software, but the 1200 is a little micro size PLC. In any case, so this, and I'm going to tell you, this line is really just taken off for those high performance needing applications with the dual gigabit. Now, when it first came out, you could not have 2 separate IPs, but from the beginning, they've always talked about the ability that they would allow you to have dual IPs. And I believe it was version 29, version 29 that came out with the dual IP support, and it was just a firmware flash. So the scan time is much faster, okay, and the core languages all execute with the same performance. That's a big difference. And then screw to screw performance from like input to output, it much faster. The IO is the backplane is just so much faster, right? So I mean, not that it's a physical backplane, but you know what I mean, right? The connection between the modules and the controller. So in any case, let me make sure here. I don't want to pass a slide here. Okay, because these look very similar. So if you think about the 5380, 20% increase in capacity, right? So that means, you know, just generically 20% more servos, 20% more memory, 20 more percent IO, 20 more, 20% in most categories, right? And you can see here, 32 axes. Now that this is all dependent on the controller you buy, and 80 Ethernet IP nodes, right? So just think 80 drives or 80 racks of IO off of one controller. Pretty cool. Now, if you're doing motion control, of course, you want the M version. One of my two are an M version, but I don't have any of these beautiful looking servos. But in any case, 32 drives in a single controller. Um, Multiple course update rates in advance. Now they even have testing. You can actually test the moves now. Um, or simulate them. When we had Rockwell on the show, they talked about that. Um, Advanced tuning with the load observer and tracking notch filter. I am not a motion guy, so I don't have any of that stuff here. So, but my motion people tell me that's really cool stuff. So in any case, security, the controller based change detection. There's a bunch of stuff that people don't realize this for years though. Compact and ControlLogix have been logging stuff to the non-volatile memory. So that's been going on for years, and now they're doing even more. So that's very cool. What do we have here? So the onboard display. Now, early this morning, in the wee hours of the morning, I was trying to change the IP address on my S7 1500. Thank you, Siemens, for sending that in. And this is one I've showed you guys years ago. And I just went up to the screen and did it like it was a micro 1400, but in color, right? So S7 1500 has this great screen. I'm not trying to belittle the screen on the 5380. But, we've had these on the IO modules for a long time. And quite honestly, it's so 2000s, right? Or maybe 2010s. But in any case, I would rather have it than not have it. But I should maybe throw a little ping out there to Rockwell. Take a look at the competition. They are doing some awesome things. In any case, I did love that, comes with the SD card still, switch instead of key, which at first I was not a big fan of, but it really doesn't matter. USB perfect like the 5370. Terminal blocks, I don't believe it comes with the terminal blocks. You have to either buy them, either screw or spring type. So always make sure. That's why I always tell people when you're buying Rockwell, always use IAB, Integrated Architecture Builder. I've done many videos on that in the past, and it's in all my courses. Probably have to do an update for the courses soon because every few years it changes. But in any case, I really like it. And then this cover here on the right hand side, unlike the 69 IO, this is just a piece of plastic. So I like that it's just inexpensive, just a dust cover for the terminals, which are live, right? So very important to have that on there. And I always thought this one was a little odd. It supports up to 31 local IO modules. So we've been 30 IO modules local for so long, right? CompactLogix up to 30, Slick 500 up to 30, right? Here they got to 31. I don't know why. It's just kind of like funny. Maybe just because they could do it, right? What do you guys think? But in any case, up to 31 local IO modules. Very interesting. And of course, it supports all the. Now, this is what we kind of took a sneak peek at yesterday. And this is what I was saying. Hey, it is truly high performance versus 5370. Now, when the 5370 came out, we were like, wow, this is so much better than than the L3 series, right? But in any case, if we look at some of these things, of course, you got dual 1 gigabit, not 100 megabit, 1 gigabit Ethernet ports, right? That's pretty cool, right? So you can see there's a chart over here that kind of goes through this. Complex applications, high performance applications, you're going to use the 5380. Okay. Communications is now separated from control. This is huge, right? So there's no more with the 5380, right? There's no more what we call the overhead, 20%, the communications overhead. Previously 20% of the controller scan by default was set for the, overhead time slice, totally gone, eliminated. This unit is now a quad core, if you haven't looked at the books on it. So they just give a core to that. I think we have a slide on that. But yeah, that's very cool, right? So no system overhead time slice. Now, if you've never run into that, you probably never used one of the old CompactLogix because Maybe not so much with the 5370, but back in the day, I still remember when they went from 10% default to 20% default because HMIs were having a hard time getting all the data. You have 20 HMIs going to a single PLC. They can put quite a load on that PLC, right? PAC. I know. Before everybody types it in, I know Rockwell calls their newest generation PAC. So does Schneider, but not everybody does that. So PLC, PAC, it's all vendor specific. Okay, so programming. I actually had somebody tell me once, PACs, anything that isn't called PAC is old, old, old. And I'm like, dude, you can get out more. Look at some of the other vendors. They have every feature that your PAC has, but they call them a PLC. So, it's marketing. Sometimes you just buy into it. Like it's not a tissue, it's a Kleenex, right? Well, that's life. Programming language extension and task switching enhancements. What I really want to show you here is how much faster, right? How much faster the 5380 is over the 5370. Not that the 5370 was bad, but look at this. Here's your L3, L3X, right? We talked about L35, L32, L31, if you're fortunate to get that. So here, 168 for this program, 168 milliseconds. L3, 45, huge increase. 5380, 9. Talk about fast. Yeah, really fast. Okay. And then the task switching time. We used to say, budget a millisecond every time you switch tasks. Now we're down into the microseconds, right? So, and again, they're saying 165 microseconds for the L35E. That's not the rule of thumb we were using. But in any case, very interesting slides here. Dual IP mode, we really already covered this. Support for DLR. 5370 had that too. I think that was one of the big things about the 5370, having that dual port switch in every unit was just amazing. So a lower investment cost with higher performance. Now, I would say space reduction for sure, right? So look over here. So you would need let's say the L30ER, right? 5373. PA4 and ECR. So that's 3 items. But now the power supply is built into the controller, like the PLC2s. And then here you have the mini 2s, right? LSP, like 216 with the built-in power supply. In any case, then you have the L310 ER. So you can see much less space because everything's kind of built into one. Of course, if you're lucky enough to have the L4, you save even more space, right? So, because that power supply we already saw it earlier in the series, right? Now, as far as cost, I don't know. I don't now on the L4, yeah, sure, but was this like real cost or is this like inflated costs? I don't know. So, and you know what? I guess you could pull up an old price list from 10 years ago to see if that changed, but we got better things to do. You can see full memory utilization. So, this is a big thing because we used to say you can't use all your memory, right? Don't use it all. You may need to save some for some firmware or something else. Not anymore. That's all stored somewhere else. So you can actually use all your memory. Now, I would always save a little bit. You never know, right? But in any case, yeah, you don't tell people anymore, hey, save 20% just in case you have to add a new firmware and it gets a little bit bigger. And you may say, well, I'll keep it at version X forever. And then you may find there's a bug in version X. You may have to go to version X.2, right? So, but yeah, that is just another advantage. Not only is this thing really fast, but now we can use all our memory for program. It doesn't show you, it's kind of like you buy a computer, has a terabyte, and then there's like 200 gigabytes worth of spam built on the hard drive. It's like, why do they do that to me? But in any case, so you do get the diagnostics, right? That's much better than the 5370 and the security with digitally signed. Enhanced diagnostics in the web page. I don't spend a lot of time in the web pages, but it's there if you're having problems. Here's where we talked about the memory, not having to reserve 20% anymore. You see message instructions, trends, alarms, RS links, online edits, all that goes away. Okay. So here's where they're recommending you kept 20% open, and now you don't have to. So you're really getting 20% more usable memory. This reminds me, the way the system's laid out reminds me of, Point.io in some respect, because you have these different buses here, and you have the field power distributor blocks, so you can uh, feed more power through. I don't know if they're changing from AC to DC here. Those kind of look like relay boards. Okay, but in any case, let's go around the easy identification. Yeah, now these are the original look. They did stop painting them black. Um, one of the reason I'm not a fan of that because the black scratches off sometimes. Not that you should be scratching your programmable controller, but I kind of like the kind of beigey gray, the light gray color. But in any case, I don't know. You guys like? Do you like the controls, the new black look with the hourglass? Or do you like it better as light gray? I'm a light gray guy. Both my units here are light grays. Hey, maybe that's why I got deals on them. They wanted the black version. Um, the DIN rail connections, I'm still not like the old one, the 69s they snapped on. These, I'm kind of like, is that really on there? But reduce space, this is true. 1 inch of thermal clearance. That's big. You save it because I think the other ones were like 2.5 inches or 2 inches at a minimum. There is a event triggers, instantaneous event triggers. So that not everything could do an event trigger in the CompactLogix. It was very limited what you could do an event trigger on. Um, the high-speed backplane, that is true. If you look at your RPIs, you can go much faster. Now, remember filters. So I even wrote articles on the blog about this. Yeah, filters. They had just trim out that noise, eliminate noise, analog and digital, and so you can have this high speed. You can put a high RPM in there, but if you have a filter in there, right, then you're not going to see that kind of speed. Um, Time stamping of inputs and scheduled outputs. I haven't done anything with that. All right, so I think we covered all that. Okay, so here's a ladder diagram, 13 times faster. Structured text 21 times faster. Function block 7.5 times faster. Sequential function chart 20 times faster. Very, very cool. Okay, so a 20x improvement. Okay, so this is why the 5380 came out. This is what it addresses. It just makes it everything. You can do a lot more. You don't have to jump right into the ContractLogix to get this high speed, right? All right, what else do we got here? Yeah. See, I highlighted these. Don't forget to order these. I need to get an extra set myself. You do get the end cap though. Thank goodness. Imagine forgetting that. Okay, here's a closer look. Okay, you can see the ports on the bottom. I wish they were a little closer, and they're separated a little bit too. I really like the 5370 ports, but these have more functionality, so maybe they need more spacing. Here you can see your reset button. Okay, and USB port. And there's your part numbers. They've added a bunch of models since this came out, I'm sure. There's no start energy. There's all these. I think there's so many more of these now. The M for motion. Okay, what else we got? 0 to 60. I'm not seeing anything else there that's interesting. Okay, so that's kind of the summary slides. So that's it for our tour of the 5th generation CompactLogix, the 5380. Don't know if there's going to be a 5390. Probably, right? But I don't know. We did have Rockwell on talking about the L9 or 5590, right? That they're going to be showing at Automation Fair. Very excited for that. And, probably a year or two later, they'll have a 5390. I'm wondering if the reason they active mature the L2 and L3 is because they're going to have a 5391, like an L1 that's actually a 5390, or maybe they'll do a 5380 L1. That would be very cool. That smaller level, I think, is when it comes to doing large systems, high performance, there's no problem with Logix. They've always been able to do that, but they've always struggled on the small end. And then the L1 was a great until it went from like I don't know $1,400 to $2,400. It was a great small fit for small OEMs. Now and everything's going up. It's just incredible. Like, the one thing that I was checking that didn't go up was, or substantially anyways, was the starter pack for the Micro 820. Now, I know there's a new Micro 820 coming. I saw it referenced in a couple manuals. I didn't actually see it anywhere, and I would love to get somebody from Rockwell on to talk about it because they upgraded the 57, the what was it, the 870, the 850, and now it's 820's turn, and I see it referenced in some manuals that they're going to update it. And I think they add like DF1 and some IO support, Ethernet IO support. They probably add other things too, but I don't have any, so I haven't looked into it. But you can still get a Micro 820 according to Proposal Works, updated last week. You can still get that for around $250. And I was actually looking at an 810. I'm trying to get that 810 input simulator to show it to my students, but they want about the same price for the 810 solder pack. So it's like, I'll pass on that. I got a couple of 810s and I don't use them much. So in any case, so with that, you know what I should probably do is just, first of all, I want to invite any vendors, any users, or any SIs out there, OEMs who want to come on and talk about, well, if you're a user, whether you're an SI or an end user, talk about what you've learned recently about products, automation products. Doesn't matter if it's Allen Bradley, Siemens, whatever. Love to have you on. And then vendors, if you want, well, and also SIs, if you want to talk about your company and services you provide. OEMs, if you want to come on during lunch and talk about the machines you build. I want to use this lunchtime as a way to just educate everybody, quickly, during a half an hour. And, I'll pass on my information, but if you can pass on yours, and vendors, you get a cool new product, you just want to come on and do a casual live stream. We still have the automation podcast, which is kind of like that sit down, half hour, 1 hour, not recorded, I'm sorry, not live. It's recorded and edited, but actually I'm editing tomorrow's, got it about half done. But in any case, so just want to invite you guys to contact me. You can contact me on LinkedIn, on YouTube. Let me pull up the automation school again. There's all kinds of contact links up here. If you want to know about training, you can even book a pre-sales meeting if you want to sit down and talk about some options. The automation blog, there is a contact link up here. It's more of a generic contact link, but you can contact me that way as well. And don't forget, if you want 20% off any of the courses, $99 or more. These are buy once, own forever, right? This is not $9 a month or $500 a year. Actually, you can get almost all of my courses for $500 a year. Not all of them, but a big bundle of them for that price. So let me see if I can go back here. So with that, we are recording, and I'm reaching out to people who know stuff about old automation products for the Automation Museum podcast. We did one with a gentleman who actually wrote the book on Triconics, and we got that in the can. This is something I'm doing on Sundays. It's totally nonprofit for automationmuseum.org. We're trying to raise money for it. And we did another one last weekend on the PLC 1 and the PLC 2 from Rockwell. And we talked about the PLC 3 and got into the PLC 5 some as well. And I've reached out to some folks who know a lot about Cymax. I reached out to folks. One of the guys is reaching out to the founder of Wonderware, one of the founders, to have him come on. So I don't know when those will start releasing, but they'll have their own. Like, I got to find an inexpensive way to do this because this is all for charity. But it'll have its own podcast. I won't be mixing it up with this one, but it will still be on my YouTube channel until we actually get the Automation Museum funded, right? So I'll just stick, because what's the sense of publishing it on YouTube if you have no followers with a brand new channel? But in any case, so lots going on. I still got the Metla Toledo in the other room I'm working on, and a lot of other stuff. But I am going to let you get back to what you have planned this afternoon. I want to make sure I'm done before I hit that half-hour mark. So I want to wish you all, let's see if I'm up to date on all the chat. Thank you, everybody who chatted today. I want to wish you all good health and happiness. And until next time, my friends, peace.